We're live.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our June meeting. Welcome to our stakeholders and constituents who are listening and watching us live. Welcome to the GIC staff who continue to be very committed to our constituents. And welcome to the board and the commissioners who I will introduce. I'm Valerie Sullivan, chairman. I'm joined here by Bobby Kaplan, who's vice chair. I'm joined by Cassandra Roder, who's representing ANF. I'm here with Rebecca Butler, who is representing Division of Insurance. We have Commissioner Liz Shabbat, Commissioner Adam Chapdelaine, Commissioner Toby Choate, Commissioner Christy Kleinard, Commissioner Tamara Davis, Commissioner Jane Edmonds, Commissioner Joe Gentile, Commissioner Gerzina Garand, Commissioner Patty Jennings, Commissioner Melissa Murphy Rodriguez, and Commissioner Anna Seneko. It is a great group of commissioners. I do miss seeing you all. I am looking forward to seeing you in person sometime, but for today, Zoom will have to do. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, our executive director, who is going to walk us through the agenda for today. We have a very exciting, very good informational meeting today, and I'm thrilled to hear more from the staff about what they've been working on. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Madam Chair. Thank you for the welcome. And I want to also share my welcome to all who have joined us and to commissioners for our last meeting of this fiscal year. Reviewing the agenda briefly, after minutes and brief comments on the executive director's report, we will have a presentation from Paul Murphy, Stephanie Sutliff, and Erica Shabelli with an update on our member benefits portal and annual enrollment, as well as all the related communications, outreach, and engagement that we've done for those. Then we'll have Margaret Anschutz, our Director of Health Policy and Analytics, to present on our carrier performance guarantees. These are the mechanisms we use to ensure that our carriers perform on the goals that we've set for them. And then we will close with our regular CFO report from Jim Rust. So that is the agenda for today. No votes, but lots of information.
Okay, thanks, Matt. It does sound like a great agenda. So at this time, I am going to entertain an emotion to get our minutes from our May meeting approved so that we can move on. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, thanks,
I'll
Bobby.
second. I'll second.
Was that Liz?
I'll set. Yep.
Yep. So, so at this point, I'd like to take a vote, and I'm going to ask Andrew to do so. My vote is yay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair Kaplan,
Yay. Sorry.
Designee Roder,
I'll abstain.
Designee Butler,
Yay.
Commissioner Shabbat,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapdelaine,
Abstain.
Commissioner Choate,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinard,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Abstain since I was not here.
Commissioner Edmonds,
Abstain.
Commissioner Gentile,
Yes.
Commissioner Guerin,
Yes.
Commissioner Jennings,
Abstain. Abstain. I was not here.
Commissioner McEnany,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Seneko.
Yes.
The vote passes unanimously of those voting.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. I do want to make two announcements regarding our board. Eileen McEnany has joined, so welcome, Eileen. And Cassandra Roder will be the designee for ANF at this meeting, and it would appear moving forward. So Cassandra's been part of our board meetings before, and we are thrilled to have her back representing ANF. So hello, Cassandra, and look forward to having you part of our meetings.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yes, we're thrilled to have you. All right, so at this point, Matt, it's all yours. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So moving on to the Executive Director's report with the substantial amount of information we'll be presenting to you today, and with a relatively light written report. I'm happy to simply take questions on what I've presented in that written report or anything else. And if there are none, I'm happy to move on to a quick review of the calendar. Today, as I mentioned, is our last meeting before we take our usual break from commission meetings for the summer. No meetings in July and August. We will reconvene in September, and we will use the months ahead to refocus on items that we can bring to you in the fall, and hope to have more updates of what you can expect at the September meeting in advance of that meeting. I also just want to note that our plan is to convene at least one in-person meeting in the fall. We will not be able to host a September meeting in person, but before the snow begins to fall, we do anticipate having one. You may have noticed in one of the slides later in the deck that we noted that we'll be remote for the foreseeable future, but that was simply a carryover from previous slide decks that we had neglected to update. So if commissioners have any thoughts, needs, or preferences on how we approach this, please feel free to let me know. And I'm happy to take questions on the
Can I ask
calendar.
you a question, Matt? It's Toby. What's the impediment to not getting together in September?
There's a few impediments. I would say the primary one is that the state is constructing new space in our building at Ashburton that will be specifically designed to accommodate an in-person meeting that also has the right kind of broadcasting capabilities. We do want to make sure that when we return back to an in-person meeting that we retain our ability to broadcast for those members of the public that do want to follow along the work that we do, simply a means of making that more convenient for our members. So I'd say that's the primary impediment. I'd say the other is simply that it's been an extraordinary year for us, and it would be just a substantial lift for the team on the heels of a very, very busy season for us. So that's been how we've been thinking about it.
Okay, not sure I understand all that, but I'll move on. Thank you.
Yeah, Toby, thanks for that question. Hey, Bobby, it looks like you have a question.
Well, I don't really have a question. It's just a comment, which is basically that I know that the rooms, the building is still being configured for, large meetings, and from DCAM, which is not, GIC's area of expertise, and aside from the fact that it's difficult for many people, even though we did it pre-COVID, it's difficult for a number of people to get to Boston for an 8:30 meeting. And so, I think once during the fall is great. And I would opt for November to give GIC, to give Matt and staff plenty of time to get ready for those meetings. But personally, I think one physical meeting in the fall and one in the spring would be perfect.
Matt, just as Toby, I agree with you, Bobby. Is the October a reasonable date to shoot for? Is that what is the building people saying to you about completing the space?
Well, it's been candidly a little bit of a moving target. So that's why we're saying the fall, because we're dependent on really a separate timeline that, as Bobby notes, is really not in our control. But I do expect, based on my conversations with DCAM, that we will have space in the fall, as soon as October is my guess. But it's not something that I can pin down, of course.
Yeah, and I just wonder, Matt, in the utmost respect, if we do nail, the October meeting and we say to DCAM, this is our go forward path, would that help DCAM also deliver on the results so that, we don't have to worry about inclement weather in November? Because then there's, another excuse for, not meeting in person. And then December is busy time. It's Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and other holidays. So I feel like October is more reasonable from a weather perspective, and it's late, it's 3 weeks into the month. So that gives, DCAM, close to 4 months to execute on one room that needs to be ready for our meeting. And I just wonder if it's reasonable to discuss with them being accountable for an October date.
We can certainly express that to my colleagues at DCAM.
Yes, and if you need any help from me to talk to folks at DCAM or the chair of that area, I'm not as familiar with it, I would be happy to support, and I think some of my other commissioners would feel the same.
Excellent, thank you for that.
I don't see any other comments on that topic, so we can keep moving.
Okay, great. Thank you, commissioners. So we'll start into the meat of today's meeting with a report on the 2023 annual enrollment and the member benefits portal. As you may know, we've reached some important milestones recently in these modernization efforts, which were launched back in 2019. This past spring, completing the opening up of my GIC link to our entire membership. This enabled us to really lean heavily into new ways of supporting our members during this year's annual enrollment. So Paul, Stephanie, and Erica will report to you on the results of the annual enrollment, as we always do, but also bring you up to speed on these modernization efforts, as well as the engagement and communications that support all of that work. I do just want to note that annual enrollment is not yet completed. As you can imagine, we still have a fair amount of work to do in the final sprint to July 1st. And this year we've tried a lot of new things, and we want to make sure that we spend some time internally reflecting on lessons learned and how we can improve the member experience and our efficiency within the organization. So we're going to spend some time doing that this summer, and we will be back to you with some more texture on those lessons learned and how we'll adapt going forward. So with that prelude, I'm happy to hand it over, I think, to Paul, who will get us started.
Sure. Thank you, Matt, and good morning, commissioners. We're happy to take this opportunity to give you a high-level overview of where the modernizations over the last 4 years have taken the GIC and how it related this year to a busy open enrollment period. So Stephanie Sutliff and myself will be going through the modernization and the annual enrollment information, and like Matt said, Erica will address the communications. So I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie and have her start walking through the modernization.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm happy to provide you with an update of the GIC MET initiative. As Matt mentioned, it's been an exciting project over the last 4 years. A significant amount of work has been undertaken by the team, but along the way, we have had some fun. I want to thank our executive sponsors, Matt Vino and Robin Healy, along with a special shout out to John Harney, our former CIO, as under his tutelage at the beginning of this project for the first 3 phases, we had successful implementations. This slide gives you a brief look at the 4 major project goals that we started out on with our phase 1 charter in July of 2019. These initial goals set the foundation and the groundwork for the initiative. Number 1 being the introduction of a CRM technology so that we were able to automate our processes, improve efficiencies, importantly, reduce paper, and provide a wholesale approach to the member experience with this new technology. Next slide, please. So the methodology and the approach that we took as part of this initiative right at the front was to establish a repeatable process across all phases of the initiative. So as you can see, there were several, I would call modules or components that we had undertaken across all of our phases. The key areas that we spent the most time on throughout the development life cycle was on discovery and design to make sure that we configured the products appropriately based on our design and requirements that we work with the business to come up with. Secondly, the testing was significant. As you can imagine, we rolled through this, and at each juncture, we did a phased testing, unit testing, regression testing, acceptance testing with all of our users, penetration testing, and accessibility testing. So it was significant. By each rollout across each year, the functionality and the features and the complexity of what we rolled out was enhanced. As we walked through these processes across all phases, one thing to account for is the member engagement significantly transformed. But in addition, we were able to transform the way we approach our work within the business team and the technical team. We employed a more agile approach and methodology to our work, and it helped us be successful all throughout the journey. Next slide. So this is a heavy slide, but I think it provides a great overview of all of the timeline, the phasers, and the member types that we were able to engage with throughout the life cycle of the project. The features, again, functionality and complexity increased over time with each go live. In phase 1 in 2019 and 20, we introduced the availability for electronic online forms processing. We took what used to happen on the back end of the systems to the front end. So by employing DataBank, DocuSign, and the Salesforce CRM tool, we were able to electronically take forms in. Phase 1 was foundational as it helped us to reduce the paper right up front. Phase 2, we were able to stand up the self-service member benefits portal, which provided for active employees who are invited to participate in a phased rollout approach for the first time to have a self-service opportunity to manage their benefits on their time, anytime, and in real time, meaning that there are interfaces now employed with the technologies so that magic, and the Salesforce application that we employed instantaneously update one another as the members walked through managing their benefits. So significant with the active employees, with a new hire, qualifying events, application, standalone, and the big one was the availability for the members to update their profiles. Phase 3, we employed the opportunity for retirees and those turning 65, the opportunity to come into this next rollout. Additional applications were launched, and for this community or a group of members, the Medicare plan enrollment and retirement event application were huge. This also was the first period that the portal was up, live, and operational for the first time during an annual enrollment. So that helped us to increase the adoption and utilization for now 2 large member groups. With phase 4, what we're currently in the throes of at the moment and heading towards completion, the remaining groups were invited in to participate in managing the benefits through the portal. We enabled email notifications to retirees and spouses turning 65 so that we could invite them in and have them come on to the portal and make any modifications or changes necessary. A significant lift during this phase 4 of the project was, as you all know, annual enrollment was a heavy lift this year. So from January through April, we spent a significant amount of time with our partners from MTX and the business and technical teams to make necessary changes in the portal to be able to support the annual enrollment. And then lastly, the 5-9 virtual contact center, which we'll speak about in a moment, was the last of the project completions for this phase in a modernization way to incorporate the telephone with the computer. I'd just like to throw out one quick shout, kudos to the team, to the ANFIT development team, to the GIC business team, our colleagues at EOTS, our vendor partners, MTX, Salesforce, DataBank, and DocuSign. Collectively, throughout the 4 phases of this project, we have become a team.
Yeah,
I'm happy to
Stephanie.
report.
Hi, thanks for that overview, and the visual on this initiative helps to show how much work was done and how deep and yet necessary the work was, right? Tell the group a little bit about yourself, because you weren't here when phase 1 started, were you? Can you just help us understand where you came in? And
I was
what you
actually
learned?
here. I was here at phase 1.
Okay.
So I was fortunate. I was a strategic director with ANFIT, and Robin Healy at the time asked me if I'd like to work with John Haney to manage the project. So I was doing project management work in IT, and that's how I started with the phase 1 development on the project, and I've been with it ever since.
Oh, great. Well, that's I'm glad that that is a perspective you share. So appreciate that. And can you also tell us, and maybe you will later on in the presentation, are we on track for success with phase 4, given that we're a month out?
That was my last bullet point I wanted to make to all of you, is that I'm thrilled to report that over 4 years, we only have 1 deliverable remaining, which is due at the end of June. It is the last deliverable. We have been on schedule, within scope, and on budget for 4 years.
Wow.
And that's the result of a phenomenal team from both the business and technical arenas, where we did work well together with our partners to forge ahead on a very aggressive project initiative.
Well, that's great. I'm curious about the retired municipal teachers. So there's probably just a handful of them. Have we been able to successfully reach out to them and get them to enroll, or has it been a little more challenging with the survivors because we don't always maybe have their emails? What has that technological challenge been, if any?
I would say, as with all of our members, it is an invited participation. We know all of the groups that come in. We need a valid email for anybody to participate, to enroll and register for the portal. So I would ask Paul to chime in on the RMTs and the survivors. I know it is a small group.
Sure. Like we said, the last 4 phases were, the small remaining groups. We have about 600 people on COBRA, about 700 people deferred. We have 8,000 retired municipal teachers, and we have 11,000 survivors. So as much as those numbers sound large, it was the last of the remaining groups. I'm happy to say that there has been an adoption from the retired municipal teachers and our survivors with the rollout of the project. I was mentioning the other day that we actually had a 92-year-old member register for the portal and ask her questions through the portal and look at her benefits online. So the adoption is there. Erica will talk about more of the communications and what we want to do to increase those efforts and collect email addresses, but it continues to be a success, and our registrations grow every single day.
Oh, Paul, that's music to my ears. I'm not surprised that you have those numbers right at the top of your fingertips. So thank you. You're huge in terms of your expertise here. So thank you. I do want to make sure everyone heard what Paul said, is that, people, sometimes assume that if you're over a certain age that you don't take on technology, but it sounds like we had a 92-year-old engage in the portal more than with us in person, an age, right?
I think we should hire her.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. All right. It looks like Jane has her hand up, and then we'll go to Bobby. Hi, Jane.
Hi. Yeah, I agree. We shouldn't make assumptions, but at the same time, we have enough data that shows that sometimes it is challenging for people in certain age groups to be, or for that matter, other groups to take full advantage of the technology. So my question was just building on yours, because my concern is there any granular information you can share with us about how this is affecting retirees broadly? Do you see any challenges that you're addressing, that you've identified and that you're addressing? Because my suspicion is that for some, again, across different segments, but certainly in the category of retirees, that this could be a continuing challenge. So I'm just curious what you've observed, if anything more, if you can just share any more information.
I would, before Stephanie or Paul go, just say briefly that sort of analysis is the type of work that we look forward to doing over the next couple of months. I will say I'm really encouraged actually to see the levels of participation from our retirees. So look forward to having some data on that. I do want to give a shout out to, as long as we're giving lots of shout outs today, to Mass retirees who we have worked with very productively throughout this very busy time. And they've given us several opportunities to promote the portal and to assist members with the portal. I know as we fielded calls for assistance with the portal and many other things, the GIC team assisted members, but Mass retirees also did a tremendous amount of work just assisting members who called them one-on-one. So I think, Jane, in answer to your question, we will have more data as we do the sort of after annual enrollment lessons learned and analysis.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Thank you, Valerie. I just wanted to echo, what has been said before, and also to echo what you said, Valerie, that this team, being a state employee myself, I know what that kind of effort is to, for people from different agencies to work together to get this project done. It was a massive project. And a shout out to Paul and to Stephanie and their team. This was just incredible to get, all this, to get this accomplished, right? On time, on budget, which in state government's it's pretty amazing to get that all done. And it takes an incredible effort with very talented and experienced and knowledgeable people. And that's really important because sometimes state employees are thought of quite differently. But I know a lot of people on this team, and it is a tremendous effort. And kudos to everyone. It was amazing, including, I have to say, the outreach and the communications to all the members. It was a just outstanding effort, particularly this year when there was a change in pretty much everything. Carriers, naming changes, flex spending, the pharmacy benefit managers. Everything has changed this year, including the way that we communicate, right? Or the GIC communicates with us. And it was outstanding. And I cannot praise everyone on the team enough.
I really appreciate that, Madam Vice Chair. Let me just say, just at the risk of having too long a discussion on this one slide, I do want to just emphasize that, as you can see with this graphic, the phased approach, I think, was really critical to our success. We wanted to make sure that we stood up the tool for various segments of our population, learned lessons by doing that initial, more limited rollout before we add more members in through the different categories as we went through each phase. So rather than trying to build it in its entirety and then have one date where it's turned on for everyone, doing it in this phased approach really gave me the confidence as executive director that we were ready to open this up for our members for annual enrollment. And thank God we did, because with the volume of changes that Bobby's noted this year, if we didn't have the portal as a tool, it would have been a different kind of experience for us and for our members. So we were able to mitigate risk and do a big thing, and as was noted, meet all of our milestones.
Yeah, very well said, Bobby and Matt. So thanks to everybody. We can move on. We don't want to forget this project or the metrics that you'll continue to provide us each year at open enrollment. This is absolutely a foundation for engaging our members and giving them the tools they need and the power they need to embrace their own health care and their health spending, and to live their best lives. And this really is a great tool to help us get to those type of goals. So thanks to everyone. Thanks to A&F for funding this for us way back when, and we're putting the money to good use. That's what I hear.
Mm-hmm.
So we can move on.
So what I thought I'd start here about the member portal, and Commissioner Edmonds, I just want to echo that members aren't required to use the portal. It is a tool, another way of getting a hold of us digitally, but members can still submit applications and call our office. It is an education, but it's also a tool that we listened to the members over the last several years. Retirement, Medicare enrollment, it helps them navigate through that process. So listening to the members and taking that into consideration when we looked at the portal and how we can design it, help members. It's a good navigation tool. It's not just digital. It does give the members the access they need or the questions that they may have regarding the enrollment process. But again, it's strictly voluntary. And what I wanted to mention here is, as of June 4th, when we presented this deck, we had 79,697 members registered for our portal. I'm happy to say that as of yesterday, we now have over 81,000 members in the portal. So this continues to grow. The bulk of the members are the active employees, as you can see by the blue, and the green represents the retirees. I will say that since last open enrollment, those numbers have doubled for both the retiree and our active population. So members are adopting the tool.
Oh boy, Paul, thank you so much for adding that information. That's really great news to hear. So when you say that it's another tool, a good tool, but not the only tool, and does that also mean that if members do nothing, if they don't enroll in some form annually, that whatever is in place for the year before continues?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, I appreciate so much that you gave that extra information, because those are the kinds of questions that come my way. So thank you.
Welcome. If you could go to the next slide, please.
And while you're advancing the slide, Paul, is it possible to get percentage? So I think it's wonderful that 81,000 plus members have enrolled, but what percent is that of total actives?
It's the total population with a valid email on file with GIC is around 209,000. So we're right around 38.9% of members enrolled using the portal. So we do have some additional work to gather email addresses, but it's probably 209,000 total with a valid email, which is about 38.9% of our population.
And maybe our labor representatives can consider ways they can help us either get more email addresses or get more engagement. Potentially, it's a resource that we can tap into on the board if you're able to help drive this higher, because I'd love to see it above 50% before our next open enrollment. Go ahead, Paul.
Great. Excellent suggestion. On this slide here, what we wanted to do is give you a progression of how the portal, when it was launched in June of 21, year by year. So you can see 21, we had 21,000. In 22, it increased to 56. And this year, it increased to 79,000. So it just gives you a perspective of how the registrations for the portal have grown since the launch of the portal. You can go to the next slide, please. What we're doing here is, over the course of the last 3 years, we wanted to give you an idea of where the registrations occur monthly. So, as we send out communications, letters to members, we introduce the My GIC link, and we encourage people, if they want to use it, they can use it. But you will see here in August of 21, which is around the time we launched the portal, we had a big uptick in numbers for people wanting to register, the 5,400. April of 22, which coincides with our annual enrollment period, we had an increase in registrations that time. And this year, April of 23, you can see where we had, all 9,791 people hit the ground running and register for the portal. So a lot of marketing, which Erica will address later on in the presentation, but it does occur during our busy times annual enrollment period and during each time we rolled out the particular phases over the last 4 years. If you go to the next slide, please. What we want to do on the next couple of slides, I apologize, it's a little small, but we wanted to at least give you a high-level overview of some of the more frequent screens that the members use in the portal. This screen here represents the personal data where members can go in and they can view all of their data, the name, their address, date of birth, etc., place where they work. And this personal information can be updated directly in the member portal as the members move, have a change, get married, change their name. But we also want to put a reminder in here. It's important that many members use their work email to register for the portal. We want to remind people that, as you know, if you're working, it's a fine. You have the tools to use that email and register for the portal. But we always like to remind people, if you're going to retire, you know, and you're not going to have access to that work email after you leave, it's always a good idea to keep your email address up to date. And we encourage people to go in and keep that address in line with their employment or when they retire. So we have some numbers on a couple of slides later that address the changes that people did. But this is a popular screen. In the next screen, if you could. This screen also is particularly helpful to our members, particularly navigating the portal. What this does is give a side-by-side comparison of all of the health plans that the member is eligible. So at the time the member registers for the portal, we look at their address, and what this screen will do is give them all the plans that are available to them in their zip code. So it's customized based on where the member resides. So they're not given any options that they're not eligible for. It works both for health and dental. So if the person is eligible for the GIC dental plan, they will see an option to do a comparison on the dental plan. But it's really helpful. It narrows down what the member is eligible for, and they're not looking at something that they're not eligible for. It gives them their monthly premium, and it is customized so that based on the data higher, it will either give them the 20 or 25% premium. So they're not looking at a bunch of rate tables here. It's pretty customized according to the member's employment and residency. So members can select up to 3 plans, and they can do a comparison. There is a link under each health plan where they can view the detail, where it will take them directly out to the website for that health plan for any additional questions or hospitals or PCP information that they may need. But we provide the links in the portal directly to the websites for the member. On the next slide, please. What this is in this slide and the next slide is when the member selects up to 3 plan comparisons, they can look at 3 health plans side by side. It gives them all of their copay deductible information, their pharmacy copays, their hospital copays, specialist copays. It gives them a full picture of their benefits by plan. So the members can select 3, go out, select additional 3, and do a side-by-side comparison. So this is something we've heard from our members, particularly when we're out on the road with health fairs, is that people like a side-by-side comparison to see what they can offer or what the benefits are. One thing we did add this year with the change in some of the benefits, particularly with the Harvard Pilgrim Access America and the residency requirement outside of New England, the first line we added here is a geographic eligibility for each plan so that members can see where their plan is offered, both nationally, all of Massachusetts, or part of Massachusetts. So that was a tool that we thought would be helpful to the members to do the comparison. They can see their geographic eligibility on this slide here. And the next slide. This is a continuation of slide 14. It's just that the member will see a full slide and be able to scroll up or down and look at all the copays and deductibles. But since we're presenting this, it's kind of hard to put it all on one slide. So we broke it up, but it's just a continuation of, as you can see, the copays, the high-tech imaging, the retail, the pharmacy benefits, etc. So it's a popular tool, and it really does help the members navigate through the portal and get their questions answered regarding copays and deductibles. You can go to the next slide, please. Stephanie's going to talk about this. As she said, this is the the last phase of 2023, the project, and how we're going to roll out this computer telephone integration CTI project for GIC staff and our members. So turn it back over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Paul. So this is the last piece, as Paul said, CTI integration. If you could go back one slide, please. Thank you.
And Stephanie, would you just, I'm sure everybody else knows, but I don't. What is CGI integration? What is the acronym that you're referring to?
Computer telephony integration.
Okay.
CTI. Sorry.
Thank you.
So it integrates the phone with the computer. So with the portal being on the Salesforce platform, using this tool with its 5.9 is the product, the virtual contact center, it has a seamless integration with Salesforce. So that's why we selected the tool. We're leveraging a contract that EOT's put out, and they're putting forth an enterprise solution for virtual contact centers. So what this will do is that it will help us with our digital engagement strategy, not just with the phone, but with chat, with texting, with email. It's a front-facing product that the members can use to reach the GIC and have a seamless integration no matter which channel they decide to come through. So if they use the portal, the key feature here is that for the staff, it's integrated and it has the same look and feel as all the other screen portal, but a member can be in the portal, and if they're calling, the phone will automatically come to an agent. And one of the key features is that there is a screen pop identifying the caller, and the computer information from Salesforce or Magic automatically will present itself to the agent on the phone. So you will know who's calling. It will present the representative with recent history for this particular member who's calling, what has happened with them, what they might be calling about, their last interactions with us. It is also going to provide a screen sharing opportunity for the member and the GIC staff so that we can do connectivity. And if they're in the portal, we can help them navigate if they're having any issues or if they have any questions on a particular screen, or they need to troubleshoot an issue that they're having, they can have a real-time interaction with the GIC staff member. One of the other key features of this new tool is that there's a courtesy callback feature. So nobody has to wait on hold for any long periods of time. Your place in the queue will be held and your number can be maintained. And when your time comes up in the line, the system will automatically call you back and you will have an agent at your disposal. In addition to all those features and functionality, there's a lot of robust capabilities for the supervisor and employee interactions for work call flow management. And there's also out-of-the-box extensive reporting and dashboarding so that we can have our eyes on the call management of the center and how we are interacting with our customers. So we're hoping to have this rolled out by the mid to end of July.
That's just terrific. What do the staff think about this? Are they excited?
I think Paul can answer that one.
Yep. Yes, we've had some preliminary discussions with staff on the computer integration with our system, and it's to the benefit of both the member and the GIC staff, where we get to see a whole picture. We started with the documentations and the forms back in 2019, the portal, and now with the phone, we get a full picture of a member profile when they call, what forms submitted, when they use the portal, etc. So it will really help staff give that whole picture and be able to answer questions. And like anything else, the screen sharing technology is going to be great for staff to help people navigate through the portal where people get stuck. So we're really happy with this piece. And, it's part of our modernization. We want to continue to make it a good experience for both staff and members.
Yeah, that's terrific. All right, we can keep moving.
Yep.
I don't see any
All right.
comments or questions.
On this slide here, we just wanted to demonstrate the benefit statement mailing that we do immediately prior to annual enrollment every year. You know, we send out benefit statements. In 2021, you'll see in the purple, the data bank is our scanning vendor for paper forms that people mail, and the vendor scans it into our CRM system. So you can see here that in 2021, there was a lot of paper forms sent to our vendor to be scanned for GIC staff to process. In 2023, you can see that the paper has reduced under the data bank and the DocuSign, and the portal has increased. So members have really taken hold of the portal and gone in to make their corrections or update their benefits with GIC. So this side is just showing a progression of reduction in scanning and forms coming into our vendor and the adoption of the technology in the portal to update their records.
Right.
On slide 19, you could go ahead. This is just a snapshot of the portal and some of the increase we get. We went back to January of 23 through May of 23 to show you the different types of requests. And these requests really, we went back to January because we start the listening sessions that we have in January for the members. And this year we had the annual enrollment sessions in March for the employees and retirees. But it just sort of gives you a snapshot of the volume of change requests. Those are people that update their name, address, increase, submit an online form, a question through the portal to GIC, and open enrollment, how people went in and used the portal during open enrollment. I'm not going to go into a lot of information on each one of these, but it just gives you a snapshot of the volume that is coming through the portal. And many of these changes here automatically come into our system Magic, and there's no staff interaction. So this has saved staff some time processing and review, since the portal is automatically updates our eligibility system Magic.
So great.
If you go into slide 20, please. This again is just gives you a snapshot of the different types of forms that we get in, data bank being a scanning vendor, as we said, DocuSign, where you can go in and submit forms electronically. We do get some forms that are faxed to us, which we document under an email, but it demonstrates the portal in green that over the 4 weeks or the 5 weeks of annual enrollment, you can see how less paper and people have gone in and done the portal, and they've really taken hold of the portal and taken advantage to make their changes that they wanted to do this year. So big increase for the portal this year, and we're happy with that because that also requires less interaction from staff and automatically goes in and updates our eligibility and enrollment system.
Yeah, it's great.
On slide 21, what this gives you an idea is, as I said before, there are change increase that come in through the portal, and they break down within the Salesforce system. Is members can go in and update their address, their email address, their name, etc. And it breaks out all of the different fields that a member can update in the portal. One in particular, the email, where we encourage people to keep that current so they can go in and register and make sure that they can view their benefits throughout the year. But 32,000, this would have required staff intervention to update all of these fields within our system, and members would have to submit paper, and GIC staff would have to go in and manually update this. These changes now come in electronically through the portal, and no staff interaction is needed. So 32,000 less pieces of paper and stuff that we need to look at is a huge improvement for staff and keeps the members up to date with their benefits. Slide 22, what this is in the past, we've demonstrated the daily logins for the portal. And what we wanted to demonstrate here is during this year's annual enrollment, the highest daily logins for the portal, you can see on the April 5th, we had 10,000 people register, go in and look at the portal and log in and view their benefits. At the end of annual enrollment, you'll see the 12, 14, and 13,000 people went in to look at their benefits and submit their change requests. So in a normal year, last year we had, average 2,000 maybe logins per day during annual enrollment. On average, it's about 700 people a day that go in and look at the portal, but this is just to demonstrate the volume of people that went in this year with the changes in annual enrollment and went in to view their benefits online.
And Paul, are these unique?
These are unique.
These are unique logins, so you're able to suss out the people who log on 10 times?
Yes, we can go in and we can take out the people that log in 10 times, but these are unique logins for these days here. Yes.
And it just emphasizes, I think, the robustness of the system. I mean, that has been really important to our planning for this. We know that our members, their patterns of interacting with us are fairly predictable, right? At the beginning of annual enrollment, and then a big surge at the end for those who wait till the end. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to accommodate those kinds of surges, and we did.
If you go to the next slide, please. This slide here, what this demonstrates is members that actually went in and did a health plan change in the portal. They made a change to their health plan. They used the functionality during open enrollment and switched to the various plans and made an election using the portal. So for comparison purposes, there's almost 14,000 people went in this year to use the portal to make their elections. Last year, we only had about 2,400 people go in and use the portal for the first year. So huge increase for members going in and making their plan elections in the portal. Gives you an idea of the top 3 plans that people went in and switched to. The purple being the Harvard Pilgrim Explorer, the green being the Unicare Plus, and surprisingly, the Harvard Pilgrim Quality HMO in the dark green also was a popular plan for members this year. So those are the top 3, but it's pretty impressive to have 14,000 people go in and use the portal to switch plans. This is 14,000 less pieces of paper that my staff have to look at and enter manually. So it was a huge success for us this year using the portal.
And why do you say you were surprised by the switch to Harvard Pilgrim Quality?
It's a new plan. I think that people, this year, I will say, given staff and the volume of phone calls come in, people looked at their benefits. So I was happy to see that people went in and actually did their comparison, did their homework, and made elections to switch plans. Going in and switching plans to 14,000 compared to 2,000 last year really gave me a comfort level that people go in and have made their election. And we're able to go through the portal and use and switch plans. Last year was the first year we rolled it out. But sometimes when we roll out some new plans, people tend to, have to ease into the plan and look at the co-pays, deductibles, etc. But that was a plan that I think people looked at and met their needs. And I was happy to see as a new plan that so many people went in and adopted that plan. So it was good. Unicare Plus is always a popular plan, and Community Choice is always a popular plan. Those plans didn't change much this year, but those plans usually are the top 2 during annual enrollment where people go in and switch. So I was happy to see the new plan that we offered, members took advantage of and enrolled.
All right, thank you.
You go to the next slide, please. This slide here it's a large number, but I just want to emphasize here, with the Harvard Tufts merger and the Tufts plans no longer being offered, and some of the changes under the Unicare where we incorporated the CIC portion into the plan, we've set up where we started mentioning at the listening sessions in the guide, the comparable plan that we would map the member to, so that if the member did not make any change during annual enrollment, that the member would be automatically enrolled in the plan for open enrollment. So this number here, 149,210, represents movement that the GIC, with our programmers and staff, actually moved almost 150,000 people into new plans and comparable plans during this annual enrollment. So that was huge. That was a big challenge for us to make sure that we got everyone properly mapped and enrolled into their plan and process the changes that people also submitted to us online. So I was very happy with that that number, but it does represent a significant shift that we had to enroll members into the plan, mostly due to the Harvard and Tufts merger, as you can see from the numbers at the top. The Unicare, it's not a big change, but Unicare Medicare extension, where we had the CIC and we had the basic plan with the CIC, and now that we no longer have the CIC, it's incorporated into the plan. We had to move people into the new name of the plan, the Unicare Medicare extension and the total choice. So I was happy with this. It was a huge success, and then, working with the IT and Stephanie's team really made this a success. And we were happy that everything went so well so that members could get their ID cards and everything. So if you go to slide 25, there's a lot of numbers here. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but I just want to give you an idea. You can see the health plans, all of the plans, including plans that were discontinued during open enrollment. On the left-hand side, you see the numbers in black. That represents members that either enrolled in the plan or state employees that did not have GIC benefits and elected benefits for the first time during open enrollment, or members that either transferred into the plan. So the left side shows the increase in membership. The right side in red shows members that have either transferred out of the plan, left state service, terminated, or withdrew from coverage during open enrollment. So the last column, the net gain or loss, is the big number that we'd like people to look at. The negative numbers in red, those just represent plans that are no longer offered. So you can see the independence and the primary choice and the Tufts complement. Those negative numbers just mean people transferred out and went to other plans. At the bottom here, where you see the transfer to and the transfer from, the 167,485. If you go to the next slide, we'll show you where these transfers took place. Little hard to read at the top of the screen where you see the plans across the top and you see them down the side. Not going into a lot of detail, but the way to read this is if you look at the names of the health plan on the left-hand side, if you read across to the left to right, the number in the right-hand column, the last column, is the number of members that transferred into the plan. So, and if you look across the top and you read down, is the number of members that transferred out of the plan. And it gives you a breakdown of what plans they came out of or changed to. So just quickly, I can give you, if you look at the third one down on the left, Harvard Pilgrim Medicare Enhanced, if you read all the way over, you can see that 12,028 people transferred into that plan during annual enrollment. And it gives you a breakdown of the plans that they transferred out of. They transferred out of independence, primary choice, the big one being the complement, 11,870, because that plan is no longer offered. So members had to come out of that plan. So it represents the transfer in when you read it left to right. And if you look at the second column on the top and read down, you'll see that 57 people left the Harvard Medicare Enhanced plan. So 5 coming out of the Tufts Medicare Preferred and 52 went into the Unicare Medicare extension. So there's a lot of numbers. I'm sure that since you've seen this ahead of time, but it's just to give you a snapshot of where those 167,000 members transfer to, of which the 149,000 on the previous slide is part of this 167,000. And which also leaves a balance of almost 18,000 members that staff either received documents or from a scanning vendor or the portal. So the remaining 18,000 over the 149 gives you an idea that, we have a lot of changes come through the portal, but we also got a lot of changes for staff, that people that submitted forms through our scanning vendor or electronically through our DocuSign system. If you go to slide 27, this is just a summary of some of the statistics for open enrollment. The top one represents GIC operations staff received over 25,000 calls during the 4-week period of annual enrollment. So I can honestly say that staff were on the phone from the start of the day to the end of the day. It's a huge number, 25,000. Comparison to last year, we received 13,000 calls. So this year was very busy for GIC staff. The calls down below where you see the GIC health insurance carriers took 13,000 calls. This number seems low, but again, it doesn't take into consideration the data breach at the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare where members couldn't get a hold of members at the Harvard plan, so they tended to call GIC, which is part of our large increase in numbers. But 25,000 calls is a huge number for GIC staff. So I'd like to extend kudos to my staff for answering the calls and taking that number of calls from the start of the day to the end of the day.
Yeah.
The next line, I'm sorry.
I said that is impressive.
Thank you. Next one, just retiree dental. If you go back one, just represents, this is a very popular plan. It continues to grow every year. 943 retirees elected this plan during open enrollment, which has increased the enrollment for that plan to 43,357. So it continues to be popular, it continues to grow every year. Last year, we were around 41,000. So it is a very popular plan and it continues to grow. Buyout applications, this is where a member can buy out of their GIC benefits and they can take a cash payment for 12 months and cancel their coverage during open enrollment. Last year, we had about 130 buyout applications. This year, we had 193. Nice note here is that we built a new functionality in the portal for buyout. And last year, we had about 80 members use the buyout function in the portal. This year, 133 members took advantage of using the buyout function within the portal, which is a huge time saver for staff. It automatically does the approval, cancels the coverage, and sets them up for the payment. So we've automated that process entirely for GIC staff, which is a huge time saver. The last down the bottom is the FSA enrollments. This is with the new vendor Task. 13,254 members enrolled in the healthcare spending, and dependent care, we have 1,900 members enrolling. The numbers on the right represent the total dollar amount of elections that members made to, tax-free, defer. So almost 25 million on the healthcare spending and 7 million on the dependent care. So a lot of numbers. I apologize going through, but I didn't want to go through every single one of these, but it does represent a successful annual enrollment. As Matt said, not over yet, but we did survive. Staff is still here, so I'm happy to report. And it was a huge success with our portal this year. It was a test, and this year it did it, and I was very happy with the results and the adoption for the annual enrollment. So I can turn it over to Erica to talk about the communications in relations to annual enrollment and the portal.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, commissioners. Happy to be back before you and presenting today. I first wanted to just note that the work I'll be reviewing today was largely executed and overseen by Communications Director Leslie Montero and Chief of Staff Emily Williams in collaboration with all of the GIC departments. As you know, I haven't been here for the last 6 months, and so there may be some questions that I need to defer, but just wanted to make sure that Leslie and Emily got the credit that they deserved. I am not the one who pulled off this work. As I'm sure you've gathered from Paul and all of our presentations leading up to this point, annual enrollment is always a really heavy lift, and this year proved to be no different. The excellent working relationship between comms, operations, vendor management teams made this year as streamlined and labor saving as possible. So as we've done in the past, the following slides will provide an overview of the multiple strategic communications employed for this year's successful annual enrollment. This slide shows a list of the annual enrollment communications and denotes in green, the green dots, which ones had My GIC link information, which would encourage members to register for the portal itself. So you can see that, anytime we had an opportunity to drop in, like, oh, you should register for the portal, we did that in whatever kind of vehicle that we had available. And the blue denotes information that was shared regarding the default enrollment. So when a plan would go away, and where folks would be mapped into a new plan if they didn't self-select. And that would also encourage members to review and shop for benefits during annual enrollment. So a couple of things to highlight from this slide. Last year, some communications went out much earlier to members in the past. For example, the paper benefit statements, and those were sent to GIC members a week earlier than last year, 5 weeks earlier than in years prior. And that same advanced timeline applied to GIC benefit guides, which were sent to members and available on our website about 2 weeks earlier than last year. The reason we've done this is that communicating with members sooner allows the operations team more time to handle individual cases and ensures the quickest member response and case turnaround possible. Second, communications continue to take on work in-house that had previously been outsourced, such as designing the benefit guides, creating enrollment forms, as well as making them ADA compliant. Bringing this work in-house resulted in a decrease in overall communications cost and less staff time and resources dedicated to the meeting and coordinating back and forth with the external vendor. Third, this year, GIC continued, obviously, as I mentioned, to promote the use of the GIC link across all communication deliverables, and those included the following. We excluded a printed version of the benefit statement correction form for those enrolled in my GIC link already, as an incentive to drive members to use the portal, save paper, conserve staff time and resources, and it also aligns with industry practices. We emailed benefit statements to members who were registered for the portal rather than mailing paper statements, again, pushing folks to the portal to review their benefits in preparation for annual enrollment. We excluded the return envelopes that accompany all printed active employee benefit statements, as well as the benefit statement correction form, in order to further motivate members to provide us with their email and make corrections online. As a result, the number of print statements for next year's annual enrollment will decrease, and members who provide up-to-date email addresses will receive a registration email link for email from my GIC link. So you can see really everything that we're doing is pushing folks to the portal, trying to increase registrations there, and get everything really digitized so that way, there's less paper to work through. And lastly, additional communications efforts were made to ensure outreach to all members and inform them of the then upcoming changes by sending them an annual enrollment letter and various annual enrollment emails. And as Paul mentioned, we did the annual enrollment info sessions, which is this is the first time we've done something so specific. We typically do the information sessions, but this year we added on the annual enrollment sessions given the changes and wanted to make sure that folks were up to speed and understood what was happening there. So on this slide, you can see that the GIC also had additional web pages and digital tools that were created for this year's annual enrollment. Some of those included an FAQ page, which received over 40,000 views since its creation, a GIC benefits page organized by member type and explaining eligibility. This is the first time that the GIC benefit offerings have been accessible all on one page like this. An FY24 health plan benefit page to clarify which plans were available in 23 and which versus 24. We had banners and news posts to help guide and educate members. And we also provided digital and print flyers for agencies to post on their physical locations or publish on their websites, which included QR codes leading to our annual enrollment page and my GIC link registration. This slide shows the impact that these extensive communications efforts made during this annual enrollment period. As Paul mentioned, we had 25,000 plus calls. I'd say that shows that folks were hearing us and knew that stuff was happening. So you can see also a large increase in our website traffic and that members stayed on our website for longer periods of time. This would suggest that they found what it was that they were looking for and were taking the time to read it.
Hey, Erica?
Yep.
Can you go back to, what is the, on the second bullet, what is an eject rate?
It's basically when a user leaves the website. So just think of like an eject button. They're like, I'm out of here. And they leave. Yep.
So this bullet's trying to say that when people came on, really, they didn't like eject immediately. They liked the content.
Right.
And they found it valuable.
Right. They were staying on to read and
Okay.
and figure out what they needed. Yep.
Okay, thanks. That's good. I mean, it's all good news here.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And this last slide shows the impact of annual enrollment and communications on our social media channels. All of our social media accounts continue to increase in engagement with followers and interactions, more than doubling in the last year. Since staff previously reported on this, we've seen engagement really jump. I think our LinkedIn is one. If you follow our LinkedIn profile, there's lots of engagement happening there, and we're really thrilled with that. So I know that was a speedy overview. We've got lots to get to, but communications staff will continue to partner with all departments across the GIC to improve annual enrollment periods, along with our broader communications, and preparations for annual enrollment are going to begin this summer much earlier than in previous years to, make it less of a crunch if possible toward next year's annual enrollment. So happy to take any questions.
I don't see any questions. Like I said, I think this is all great news. And I would just encourage you, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners would as well, to provide these metrics, get information from our stakeholders, make sure that the information, as you have done already, is clear and it links our constituents' insurance with the value prop that this is the GIC, and this is all the work they're benefiting from because they are state or retirees. So we're taking care of our constituents like we believe they feel like they signed up for this, right? So keep up the good work. I'd love to see 100%. I know we have to get the emails. So if any of our constituents or labor folks are listening, encourage your constituents to give us their email, enroll on the portal, right? Because we can't do anything without their email, and it not work personal. It's for their benefit, right?
Before we close on this, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Erica and Paul and Stephanie for the presentation. As you can see, I think from this presentation, we are really transforming how we interact with our members and also transforming how the organization operates internally. This has led to really a tsunami of engagement with our members during annual enrollment this year. And I just want to acknowledge that we've done all of this with the same amount of staff that we've had, which is, as Paul has noted, it was a tremendous lift this year, and the staff, I just can't give them enough credit and thanks for all the work that they've done. We asked a lot of them this year, and they rose to the challenge.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Matt. Hey, Bobby, I see you have your hand up for a question.
Yes, I just want to basically reiterate that everyone has done a tremendous job. And myself, as I said before, being a state employee myself, first of all, change, happens very slowly in state government. There are lots of different, there's software that doesn't speak to each other. There were all sorts of factors, right? And so the GIC, with the staff that they have, which is small, okay, has taken on this huge initiative, and just to be on time and on budget, as I said before, I was thinking about the last day of enrollment, the very last day of the enrollment period. There were over 13,000, right? People who enrolled, which normally would have been paper, when you think about it, on the very last day, right? That state employees, right? GIC employees, right, have done a super terrific job. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but it's tremendous with Matt's leadership, with Paul and Stephanie and everyone at the GIC and John Harney, who is no longer at GIC. It's been a tremendous effort over the last 4 years that this has actually happened, right? With almost seamlessly. And I cannot express my thanks enough and congrats to everyone who's been involved, because, I don't know that this would have occurred without Matt's leadership and the focus, right, of Paul Murphy and what focus that takes, because being sort of inside, I know exactly what the obstacles are. And I think all of us who represent labor, we all know our members, and this is just a huge, huge change for people. And I cannot express my congrats enough to everyone at the GIC. It's just amazing work. So thank you all.
That means a lot to us, Madam Chair. Thank you for that.
All right, let's move on. All right.
All right. So thank you, everyone. So now we'll move on just a little bit over time here to the really important, another area of really important work, our carrier performance guarantees. And for this, I hand it over to Margaret Anschutz, our Director of Health Policy and Data Analytics. Margaret.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm presenting this morning on performance guarantees, which we use as one means of holding our carriers accountable. When not met, PGs trigger financial penalties. These PGs cut across the 4 domains you hear on the slide here: operational, cost control, clinical quality, and health equity. I'll go into deeper detail on the PGs in the upcoming slides, but first a little on the goals of each PG at a high level. So for our operational PGs, these PGs ensure that carriers meet or exceed industry standards for administrative services related to running a health plan, things like claims processing and responding to member questions. For cost control, we want to ensure that carriers are doing everything within their power to constrain their spending trend or medical inflation. We expect carriers to keep trend in line with the Health Policy Commission's benchmark, this year 3.6%, or given GIC's market size, we expect that they keep our costs growing at a slower rate than the Massachusetts market at large. For clinical quality, we also expect that our carriers are working with providers to ensure our members are receiving best-in-class care. And finally, with respect to health equity, we have a financial incentive to ensure that carriers are actively working to reduce health disparities by operationalizing nationally recognized best practices in this area. Next slide, please. Our plan service and operational goals are pegged to industry standards. I'm going to talk a little bit about what these areas are. So turnaround time for claims processing, we want providers to get paid in a timely and accurate manner. Customer service, our members' questions, we expect that they're resolved quickly and accurately. Overall member satisfaction, this is measured annually by each of the carriers through a survey. Account management, we need our GIC staff to be well supported by and have confidence in the staff who oversee our account. BH network, we need to know that members have access to medication-assisted treatment for substance use disorder And we also need to know that provider directories are being audited for accuracy and for contact information as well as demographics. And finally, around implementation, GIC needs to be satisfied with any changes that we're making with the health plans and how they're implemented and that they met our standards. We monitor all of these areas throughout the year, and if a plan does not meet the agreed upon standard, they are penalized.
Hey, Margaret,
Yes.
is there a possibility that, and these are for this year's moving forward, our contractual performance guarantees, or is this previous?
So the operational ones that we just talked through, as well as the cost control and clinical, were in the prior contract with some adjustments, and they will be in the next 5 contracts for the next 5 years. And then the health equity performance guarantees are new as of this contract cycle.
Perfect. So I knew you had listened to what the commissioners wanted, so thank you.
Absolutely.
So that's 1. 2 is, this might be a far out metric or too late, but is it possible to get data on the behavioral health providers? What is the length of time from the time our member is looking to get in and the time they're actually seen? Is that a possible metric?
I have a half answer, which is there in certain circumstances, such as when a vendor has a telehealth vendor, for example, we can record how long it takes from when the member calls to when they either have their first appointment scheduled or see a telehealth provider. That is not something that is measured outside of those vendor relationships, as far as I know.
I know a lot of the commissioners, including myself, are very concerned about our members and their ability to access care. So to the degree that we can, measure it, for just knowledge base, not to be pejorative to providers, because it's so hard when there's a shortage. So
absolutely. And I would just add to that we are moving into our strategic planning phases for the next 5 years that will include the development of our strategies specific to affordability, health equity, and of course, behavioral health. So we'll have more of a framework set out, and we will be establishing the metrics by which we're measuring success. And I think that's one of the metrics that we will be incorporating.
Yeah, great. Eileen, I know you have your hand up. Feel free to ask it now, or we can wait until Margaret's done with her presentation.
Whichever you'd prefer.
I'm going to go with what you prefer. So right back at you. Go ahead.
So I guess because it pertains to the equity, I did have a question. I know when I worked at Mass Taxpayers Foundation, we had done some work on health equity, and at least at that time, there weren't standardized metrics by which to measure. And so I'm just curious, what are the metrics that the Group Insurance Commission will use to determine whether the plans have made progress?
Yes, so I'm going to be getting into that in a later slide, and
All right,
we can talk more about it later. Yeah.
Great. All right, let's keep moving. Great, Margaret.
All right, so cost control. We want to know that our carriers are doing everything they can to minimize trend increase. As you are all aware, this trend translates into our members' premiums and to state dollars. Broadly, our healthcare costs are made up of utilization and price. So to manage trend, our carriers implement strategies to reduce overutilization, and we also expect carriers to use all of their tools to negotiate the best rates possible for our members. The performance standards we've set for cost control are these. 1, we expect that carrier trend either meets or is below the Health Policy Commission's annual benchmark for healthcare spending. That's set by the Health Policy Commission. That is not something we have direct influence on. That's done by another agency. And this year's benchmark is 3.6%. Aligning with state initiatives, we expect that 3.6 to be met. However, we recognize, and this is the second thing that we measure, we recognize that in some years, like the market as a whole, our carrier's trend may not come in under the benchmark. In this case, we expect that each carrier's trend will be lower than the Massachusetts-wide trend. So we expect our carriers to beat the market, and this trend is calculated by the Center for Health Information and Analysis, which we compare each of our carriers' trend to the overall market trend. We expect them, by virtue of our size, to be able to beat what the market is performing at, and we hold our carriers accountable to that. So essentially, we are aligning first with the Commonwealth's priority to keep trend under the benchmark, and then if they don't meet that, we expect our carriers to beat Massachusetts trend. Okay. For clinical quality, once again, aligning with the Commonwealth's priorities, our clinical quality measures are taken from a statewide measure set developed by an industry task force convened by the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. Quality metrics can be hard to draw consensus around, as patients, health plans, and providers all have their own point of view on what constitutes quality of care. By using the vetted set developed by the EOHHS task force, we are working from a list of measures that have already gained consensus in Massachusetts, are in place with Medicaid plans and Medicaid providers. And since these measures are already in place, the administrative burden placed on providers and plans is then minimized, which we also think is very important. We look at measures specific to each of the green boxes on this slide and hold the plans to high standards of performance. So, these 6 boxes here, with the exception of the race, ethnicity, and language stratification, these 5 boxes are there are submetrics underneath it that we use to evaluate the quality of the processes and outcomes of care that our members are receiving. And then we also expect those 5 boxes that we have measures stratified by race, ethnicity, and language. All right. I know the Commission is particularly interested in my next 2 slides, which are on health equity. So a little background, NCQA governs the standards by which health plans attain health equity accreditation. A health equity accredited plan is one that has built and operationalized health equity into all of its programs. Accreditation focuses specifically on building an internal culture at the organization that supports external health equity work, collecting data that helps the organization create and offer language services and provider networks that are mindful of individual cultural and linguistic needs. And also, accreditation focuses on identifying opportunities to reduce health inequities and improve care through evidence-based interventions. So a lot of high-level words. I'm going to drill into that a little bit more in the next slide. But before we get into the next slide, I just want to make a point of saying that GIC is requiring each of its carriers to attain health equity accreditation through NCQA. This process varies in the amount of time it takes. Usually it's around 12 months, but can run longer. And that variation based on where an organization is with respect to its core capabilities. And we are going to jump into the core capabilities on the next slide. So currently all carriers are working towards this accreditation with the exception of Point 32 that achieved accreditation already. That does not mean Point 32's work is done here. There is also a Health Equity Accreditation Plus standard, which focuses on connecting organizations to the communities where their members live, building relationships with community-based organizations that support social needs, and such as food and housing. Point 32 is there. They're beginning that work. Our other carriers are continuing the work towards health equity accreditation. And now I would like to give you all a flavor of what this process, it's an extensive process, what this entails. All right, so from the top box, organizational readiness. It's important that organizational staffing reflects populations that they're serving and that everyone is trained on how to develop a culture that supports health equity work. So NCQA Health Accreditation, they provide a framework for attaining organizational readiness. The standards are behind a paywall. You have to work with NCQA to know what the standards are, and they support you in working towards developing that organizational readiness. The same thing can be said for each of these boxes down the line. NCQA creates the framework and the standards. They evaluate the plan after they've put this work into place and accredits or doesn't accredit. And if they're not accredited, they work with them to get them on the right path. So after organizational readiness, the next point is race, ethnicity, language, or REL data, as well as gender identity and sexual orientation, or SOGI data. The collection of REL and SOGI data is foundational, as the Commission realizes. This core capability ensures that we have a full demographic picture of our membership and that we can measure disparities. Availability and access of language services. Language data, once collected, this informs all written and oral communications with members in a manner that meets their needs. Provider network, cultural responsiveness. Our provider networks are expected and are capable of serving a diverse membership. For example, they need to have the ability to bring interpreters when available or when needed. Culturally and linguistically appropriate services and programs. These are measurable goals that are in place for continuous improvement around cultural and linguistic appropriateness of services. And finally, reducing healthcare disparities through the collection of data from the REL data and the SOGI data. Carriers are able to stratify their population by this data, this demographic data, and implement evidence-based interventions to close the gap in outcomes. What's not explicitly stated on this slide in these core elements, but that I want to make explicit, is that the core services here enable organizations to launch a program of continuous improvement with respect to disparities. Once gaps in care are identified and appropriate intervention is implemented, measurement and evaluation continues as organizations work to refine their health equity strategy and work to reduce disparities. Again, as I mentioned, NCQA provides this framework and the standards necessary to make critical advancements in health equity at each health carrier. And we expect our carriers to make the most of the accreditation process and support that the NCQA provides. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, Margaret, that was great. So glad to have you on the team. I do see that Bobby has her hand up. Go ahead, Bobby.
Thank you, Margaret. That was terrific. I am very interested in sort of where the other carriers are in the accreditation, process.
Yes, yeah. So as I said, point 32 is accredited, and the other carriers are working on collecting data. They are in various places with respect to the other elements of this. I don't have a breakdown of it for each of the carriers right now, but this is something we're monitoring yearly and have attached financial penalties too. So we will get that information on a yearly basis.
Oh, so that's what I was going to ask you. Like, is there some deadline for them to become accredited?
Yeah. So I think 3 years is what we can expect. I want to make sure that there's the proper balance of incentive in the form of financial penalties and runway in the case of less resourced plans that need a little more time to bring on the expertise. Really, the goal here is to get everyone accredited first, and there certainly is the stick of the financial penalty, which I think will it applies every year if they're not making progress. But I think you can expect to see after about 3 years, all of our carriers are accredited.
So thank you. Can I just ask another question about, let's say, point 32, which is already accredited? Like, how frequently are they accredited?
I'm not sure what the accreditation cycle looks like at the NCQA level. I would guess that it's yearly, but I can look into that.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any idea, like when someone is accredited, like 0.32, like how will we know if they lose their accreditation?
We're
guess.
monitoring for that, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much. It was terrific.
Yeah, I thought Margaret was going to say that she will beat them if they lose their accreditation. But she did not. So if 0.32 is already accredited, how well are they in collecting the data? Like, do they have to have for NCQA? Because part of the problem, if I remember correctly from you, I do try to absorb everything you tell us, Margaret, is that the health plans weren't historically collecting this data. So as part of NCQA accreditation, what % of the data collected needs to be collected in order for them to get accredited, and how good is it? Like, so there's the actual data % that's collected, but there's also the quality, and how many people say, I prefer not to say, and can they do more? And so without the data, we can't make arguments to improve the health. So we need the data, right?
Absolutely. So I have a couple of points to make with respect to your question, which is excellent. You know, I could talk for days about the data and the data aspects. I won't.
Well, we have 15 minutes, and I think we need we need time for Jim. So
of course, and he is my boss, so there will be time. Yeah, the data collection, the NCQA standards, I'm sure they have like an 80% threshold. The standards are behind a paywall, so I don't know explicitly what the standards are, but I know that they do allow for some flexibility in the standards, such as imputation. And that's really important because it is hard to get population level race ethnicity data across the board, and nobody wants to twiddle their thumbs. Imputation is a very good way of filling in the data until the time where you have the gold standard of member level reported race ethnicity data. And so I think that, you know, 0.32, they had a head start. They really started collecting data way ahead of everybody else, and are building off of that early success. And I suspect have likely imputed some data too.
Okay. Well,
and I did want to mention another one of your points. Members are able to part of accreditation is members are able to indicate that they do not wish to report.
Yeah. Well, for our stakeholders listening, please report it so that we can collect this data. And for our, union participants and just all of us, just let's think about, we need this data. So suggesting, requesting, having the health plans do everything they can to, ask people to be forthcoming in the data. It is great. So I know I'm the one chewing up time. So Matt, you can take the gauntlet from me and push me aside. But this is great, Margaret. We've asked you for this, and I love to see the follow-up. So thank you. Keep us posted on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the risk of gobbling up a moment, I do just want to highlight one theme here that I hope you've seen throughout Margaret's presentation, and that I've talked about to the Commission several times before. We're not doing this in our own silo at the GIC. We are working in close collaboration across all of these priority areas with our colleagues in state government, whether it's the HBC or CHIA or EOHHS. And that's intentional. We want to leverage the good work of others, and I think there's loads of opportunities across all of these, across our three primary domains of behavioral health, health equity, and affordability. On health equity, yesterday I was on a panel at a health equity summit hosted by the Health Equity Compact that included David Seltz from the Health Policy Commission, Lauren Peters at Chia, and Audrey Gasteyer at the Connector. And there was superb alignment, particularly in the area of health equity. So we're doing our part. We're doing our part in concert and alignment with others who are also working on this. I think that's the way that we amplify the work of each specific agency.
That's great, Matt. Yeah, collaboration across state agencies is great to hear, and appreciate that ongoing reminder. It's just really terrific. So thanks. I love to see it.
All right. Well, only 2 minutes behind schedule. I will now turn it over to Jim Rust to run through our CFO report. Jim.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to do a brief update since we are at the end of the fiscal year. I know we did one last month, but we've had some changes in our status, and we won't see you again until September. So we want to let you know what we're doing. You're familiar with this slide. It shows how we've paid all our vendors from the state share, the Commonwealth share of funds. Now this is through the course of almost the whole year, including May. Next slide, please. And this is the employee share of the same accounts. So this is, again, the mirror image of that, but shows what the employee contributions are to each of these vendor payments. And next slide, please. So here are the lines that show our year, and this slide and the next slide, for those who pay attention to these slides closely, are converging now, because instead of projecting the whole year, we're almost through the whole year. So the share in the more purple line is what we budgeted for the year. And you can see at the end, there's a bit of a divergence happening here in May, and I'll get to that towards the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, these slides are almost converged now. Normally this projects the rest of the year, but there's only 1 month to go, which is June. Next slide, please. As you're familiar with this slide, it shows kind of the enormity of our budget. As over the course of the year, we spend almost exactly what we budgeted, because of our variation is small compared to the overall budget of $2 billion. Next slide, please. And finally, here are the numbers behind the slides, which is what I wanted to get to today. As you can see, through May, we are now over budget, which is a position we haven't been in very often here, although we're well within our variability on budget here of $7 million, 0.3%. But it does show that given our volatility, it can go either way. And generally it's gone that we've been at least slightly under budget, but at this point we're slightly over budget. And a couple of things are driving that. As you know, when we get the billing, it's not as detailed to really get into the nitty-gritty of the cost drivers, but we can see where it's coming from. And there's a little bit more pharmacy spend than we expected in the course of May. And also a few more vendor invoices on the medical side were higher than we expected. And this looks like a combination of utilization and price on the medical side, and kind of more pricing on the pharmacy side. We also went back, as we would with the budget team, and looked at our projections over the course of the year. And we probably could have spread the pharmacy spending out a little differently. That wouldn't affect the bottom line. So it still would be $7 million over budget, but we might have seen it coming a few months earlier. But that being said, this is a pretty solid result for the year so far. We are in touch with the vendors to see what bills are coming in June. So we expect that this shortage in the budget will resolve itself over the next several weeks as we manage our encumbrances and all the state accounting that we do. But we should come on right about on budget when we give you the yearly update at the end of September. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, well, I'm looking to see if we have any questions. I do wonder, I asked this question last time, so I realize it's repetitive. Will we get any offset from pharmacy rebates, from the drug rebates, so that it could be net neutral with the increase in the pharmacy spend that we didn't project?
We get the pharmacy rebates during the course of the year, so that's right. So you're on the right track there, but we do already factor them into the budget. So we had them in the budget. So this is reflective of all rebates to date for the course of the year. There is one rebate that comes in at the end of the year. We know what that is. So that's also factored into these figures. So yes, we do get offsets for the pharmacy rebates, and they're all factored in here already.
And is there any concern by the administration? I mean, it's a very small delta that we're over. Is there anything the commissioner should know about concerns, or this is, standard operating for the, last year we might have been up a little bit. It's not like we had to give it back or had to disperse it, but it's not like we're also going to be asking for more money from our members, right? So this is just normal course of business.
Right. We have plenty of money in the employee share account, which is the part of the account we pay the employee share of expenses from. And as far as the Commonwealth goes, there's a number of mechanisms in place if we were to be short on budget, but we won't need to do that. And at the end of every year, there's a year-end exercise that we do with the budget folks, with the Commonwealth and our partners at A&F. So they're well aware of what's going on here, and we don't expect we'll need a supplemental budget, which is the vehicle that we would need if we needed more funds. But that's not going to be the case this year. If it were a bigger deficit in the budget, then that's when those kind of things kick in. We would be talking with the budget directors at A&F to alleviate that. But that's not the case here. This is just kind of our normal variance. We pay 200 million in invoices every week, and so something moving up 10 or 12 million dollars in a week is possible. And that's what happened here. That's just normal volatility, and generally our volatility again has been on the under budget side. This time it's just spilled over to the over budget side, and that can happen as well. In this case, it has.
That's how it all evens out. So
it does. That's a good way to think of it, right?
Yes, very nice. Very nice. Okay. No other questions. Jim, thank you. It was an excellent overview, and we appreciate the heads up, given that we're in a hiatus over the summer. So we don't want any surprises, and you have given us that info. Oh, Toby, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead. Toby, you might need to take yourself off mute.
I'm sorry about that. I was muted. Jim, just a quick question on the budget for the coming fiscal year. I'm sure you're in the throes of going back and forth on that. Is it your sense that we're going to be properly budgeted so that we have a shot of, coming in on budget, or,
I do. Yeah, the budget we submitted and the one that is moving its way through the budget process with the state that I'm sure we'll be reading about is fully funded. We've received what we asked for. Our best estimates of spending towards next year, given the new procurement and all of that. And we feel like we're in pretty good shape there. So yes, and thank you for asking, because I meant to bring that up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I have any other questions on Jim's presentation? Okay, I don't see any, so we can move on.
So that concludes our agenda for the day. It's been an extraordinary year. We knew it would be leading into it. And this brings our commission business for the fiscal year to a close. So I just want to thank the commission for your support, your guidance, your insights over the entirety of the last year, and look forward to another successful year in fiscal 24. So look forward to seeing you all in the fall.
Yes, in person. Put that in the notes. There's
in person, maybe once.
So I want to thank you, Matt, Jim, Margaret, Stephanie, Erica, everybody who presented today, all the staff, Paul, especially the depth of knowledge that the staff have in terms of benefits, I think is an enormous benefit to us as the commission, but most importantly to the constituents, because without their deep commitment, their knowledge, I am unclear if this project, this transformation project would have happened. And it has. I don't want to jinx it for July, but it's really a big deal to have this technology to engage members, to help them make the best decisions for their health, and to let them know that we trust that they are able to make these decisions because they have all the power they need to, with our support, to be healthy and to live the lives they want to live. And that's what gets me excited to be on the commission and to be part of this amazing team. So thanks to everybody. Have a wonderful summer. We will see you in September. and appreciate everything that we'll all do over the summer, coming back refreshed in September. All right. All right. Bye, everyone. This
You all.
meeting is adjourned by the chair.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.